Hi everyone. Today, we'll take a closer look at a true legend of the seas, the four-masted barque Padua. Sit back and imagine the creak of rigging, a canvas of sails billowing, and the hum of a hull cutting cleanly through an open ocean breeze. That's the world Padua was built to master. Launched in 1926 for the Hamburg shipping house Laeisz, Padua belonged to a celebrated line of wind-powered workhorses known to sailors and ship owners around the world as the Flying P liners. These ships were more than cargo carriers, they were purpose-built instruments of speed and reliability. Named often with the letter P, they quickly earned a reputation for racing the winds and delivering perishable goods, nitrate and other valuable cargoes across long trade routes with extraordinary punctuality. When you hear the name Padua, think of precision engineering married to old-world seamanship, steel hulls, clean lines, and a rigging plan conceived to extract maximum power from whatever wind the ocean would offer. In the competitive era of commercial sail, the Padua and her sisters were the sports cars of the sea, designed not just to carry freight, but to do it fast. Captains and crews praised her for steady handling in heavy weather, and for an ability to maintain high average speeds on long ocean passages. Several design choices earned that reputation: a long waterline and slender hull that reduced drag, carefully faired lines that let the ship slice through waves rather than pound, and a sail plan that could be reefed or trimmed precisely to match changing conditions. The result was a vessel that could be pushed hard when opportunity and safety allowed, and which would still behave predictably when the seas turned angry. Beyond speed, Padua stands as a symbol of an entire chapter in maritime history. The Flying P liners were central to Germany's merchant marine identity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. They embodied a national tradition of exacting craftsmanship and competitive spirit on the world's trade routes. Crucially, Padua has survived when many of her contemporaries have not. She is the only ship of her series still afloat and capable of sailing under her own canvas. You might wonder why a vessel built nearly a century ago still matters. The answer is simple: Padua connects us to fundamental human themes: ingenuity, risk, craft, and endurance. For anyone curious about design, she is a textbook, an object that answers engineers' and historians' questions about how to make a sailing ship both fast and safe. For lovers of maritime romance, she is a dramatic presence, a ship that can still heave to and trim her sails as if the 20th century never ended. In practical terms, studying Padua's plans and design gives us insight into the trade-offs naval architects made, how length relates to speed, how beam and draft affect cargo and stability, and how a rigging layout can be optimized. Now, let's turn to the heart of our story, the design and creation of the Padua. Every great ship begins with a purpose, and Padua was no exception. In the early 20th century, the Hamburg-based shipping company Laeisz faced a demanding challenge: to transport nitrate from Chile to Europe, across some of the most treacherous waters on Earth, around Cape Horn. The task of designing this new vessel was entrusted to Georg W. Clausen, the chief naval architect of the renowned Hamburg shipyard Blohm & Voss. Clausen combined the proven traditions of sailing ship construction with the latest industrial advancements of his time. Under his guidance, Padua was conceived as a four-masted barque, a configuration that perfectly balanced power and practicality, offering enormous sail area with a relatively small crew. The Padua's hull was built entirely of riveted steel, giving her exceptional rigidity and durability against the pounding seas of the Southern Ocean. Her lines were drawn long and graceful, with a streamlined underwater shape designed to cut through waves efficiently, reducing resistance and increasing average speed. Her main dimensions reflected this harmony of form and function. A length of 114.5 meters. A beam of 14.04 meters. and a draft of 6.26 meters. With a gross tonnage of over 3,100 tons, she was among the most impressive windjammers of her generation. The Padua carried a vast expanse of canvas, between 3,400 and 3,800 square meters in total sail area. Her four towering masts and steel rigging gave her both strength and flexibility, while her carefully calculated sail plan allowed her to harness even the lightest winds efficiently. This sophisticated rig could be handled by a crew of just 40 to 50 men, thanks to its balanced configuration and the use of modern mechanical aids. The ship was equipped with powerful mechanical winches. Her cargo holds were spacious, optimized for bulk goods like nitrate, ensuring stability and efficiency during long voyages. For her time, Padua even offered relatively comfortable accommodations for her crew, well-ventilated quarters that provided a small measure of dignity during months at sea. Her design allowed her to thrive in an era already dominated by steam and steel, proving that the age of sail had not yet surrendered its grace or its power. And so, from the drawing boards of Georg Clausen and the workshops of Blom and Voss, a legend was born, one that still sails today, under a new name as a living monument to the mastery of design and the courage of those who dared the wind. After the design was complete, it was time to bring the vision of Padua to life. Her construction took place at one of Germany's most renowned shipyards, Blom and Voss, in Hamburg. This yard had already built some of the finest vessels of its age, and with Padua, it was about to add another masterpiece to its long tradition of excellence. In 1925, the first steel plates were laid down on the shipyard's slipway, marking the birth of yard number 408. From that moment, riveters, welders, and shipwrights worked side by side, shaping the cold steel into the sleek lines that Clausen had drawn on his plans. Slowly, piece by piece, a new flying P-liner began to rise above the docks of Hamburg. By June 1926, the hull was ready for her first taste of water. On the 23rd of June, the shipyard celebrated her ceremonial launch. Amidst cheers and the sound of brass bands, the great steel hull slid down the greased ways and met the river with a thunderous splash. The honor of naming the ship fell to Martha Laeisz, daughter of one of the company's partners. With the traditional blessing, she christened the new barque Padua, following the Laeisz company's long-standing custom of giving their ships names beginning with the letter P. This one paid tribute to the Italian city of Padua. After fitting out and rigging, Padua went through a series of sea trials to test her strength, balance, and speed. The results exceeded expectations. Padua proved fast, steady, and seaworthy. By the autumn of 1926, she officially entered service, ready to join the proud fleet of Laeisz ships that carried the company flag around the world. Padua's maiden voyage began in 1926, when she left Hamburg under the command of Captain Karl Schuberg, bound for the Chilean port of Talcahuano. This first journey would set the pattern for the years that followed, the long, hard, and perilous nitrate run around Cape Horn. Her mission was simple, but demanding, to carry nitrate, fertilizers, grain, and timber between Europe and Chile, relying solely on wind, seamanship, and endurance. These were voyages of months, across the South Atlantic, through the roaring Forties, and past the deadly storms that haunted the Horn. But for the men aboard Padua, they were also journeys of pride and skill, proof that human hands and canvas could still master the elements. Padua quickly earned a reputation among sailors as one of the fastest and most efficient ships of her trade. She set record passages on several legs of her voyages, sometimes outpacing her sister ships and even surprising observers used to the speed of modern steamers. And while the world was moving toward engines and fuel, Padua remained profitable, thanks to the one resource she never had to buy, the wind itself. Her operation was economical, her crew well trained, and her routes precisely calculated. Did you know that the four-masted barque Padua also became a movie star? Yes, this majestic Windjammer, built for the harshest seas, once found herself in front of the camera, immortalized on film. In the early 1930s, the world of cinema was fascinated by great sailing ships, by their strength, their grace, and the romance of the open sea. Among those legendary appearances, two films stand out. In 1930, the film The Heir of the White Devil, or Der Erbe des Weißen Teufels, featured a ship from the same famous family of flying Windjammers. It wasn't Padua herself, but her near twin, the barque Pamir. Both ships were almost identical, powerful, steel-hulled giants built for endurance and beauty. Through Pamir's role, audiences caught their first cinematic glimpse of what a Padua-class Windjammer truly looked like under sail. But just 5 years later, Padua took center stage in a film of her own. In 1935, she appeared in The Mutiny on the Elsinore, a German adaptation of Jack London's famous novel. This was no studio mock-up, no miniature, the movie was filmed on board the real Padua, out on the open ocean. The directors wanted authenticity, the sound of the wind in the rigging, the creak of steel masts, the real movement of a ship fighting her way around Cape Horn. And Padua delivered it all. What the cameras captured was more than fiction, it became a historical record, preserving the ship exactly as she looked in her original form. Today, those old black and white scenes are precious fragments of maritime history, moments when Padua still bore her German colors, sailing under her own power, long before she became the Kreuzenstern we know today. Then came September 1939, the outbreak of the Second World War. At that moment, Padua was far from home, anchored in the Portuguese colony of Mozambique. When the war began, neutral Portugal acted quickly to prevent any belligerent ship from entering combat or aiding its nation's war effort. And so, Padua, as a vessel of Germany, was interned in the port of Lourenço Marques, known today as Maputo. There, the once proud barque lay quietly at anchor, her sails furled, her rigging still, and her crew living in uneasy isolation. During these years, both Germany and its allies made occasional attempts to reclaim or repurpose the vessel, but every negotiation ended in failure. Neutrality held firm, and Padua remained a prisoner of circumstance, caught between empires, between peace and war. By the end of the war, Padua had spent nearly 6 years confined in the quiet waters of Mozambique. The age of commercial sail, the age she had represented so proudly, was finally over. Yet her story was not finished. And soon, she would begin a new life, under a new name, and under a new flag. As the Second World War drew to a close, the world's great powers gathered to decide the fate of a defeated Germany, and of its remaining ships. According to the Potsdam Conference agreements, the remnants of the German fleet were to be divided among the Allied nations as part of war reparations. It was a simple truth of history: when a nation begins a war of conquest, it must, sooner or later, pay the price, with its ships, its industries, and its resources turned over to those who had suffered its aggression. In January 1946, the Padua was officially transferred to the Soviet Union as part of these post-war reparations. For the first time, the Soviet naval ensign was hoisted at her stern, marking her rebirth under new command. A Soviet crew of 60 men, led by Captain Dmitry Afanasyevich Lukmanov, took charge of the ship. Her new crew brought the barque safely north, completing the long voyage to Leningrad in the autumn of 1946. Upon arrival, the ship was given a new name, one that carried deep meaning for her new homeland. She became Krusenstern, in honor of Admiral Ivan Fyodorovich Krusenstern, the great Russian navigator who had led the first Russian circumnavigation of the globe. Today, the Krusenstern still sails the world's oceans. A living, breathing monument to human skill, endurance, and the timeless beauty of the wind-powered ship. From her birth at the Blumenvoss shipyard to her transformation under the Soviet flag, she has witnessed nearly a century of change, yet remains true to her origins. The Padua began as a symbol of German engineering. The Krusenstern lives on as a symbol of global maritime heritage. Thanks for watching.